Hi everyone, you're watching Pivotal Stories here at SpringOne Platform 2018. I'm Jeff Kelly. My guest is Vincent Oostindië, who is a business architect with Rabobank. Welcome.
Yeah, well said.
Thanks very much. I think a great way to start would be just introduce the audience to Rabobank, who may not be familiar with it, and then we'll get into some of the drivers of your digital transformation.
Okay, so Rabobank is a bank founded in the Netherlands, so not well known probably in the rest of the world, but we're actually active in 39 countries with 1.3 million international customers, mostly in the food and agriculture sectors. We're actually one of the leading banks in that area. In the Netherlands, we're one of the top 3 banks with over 7 million customers. Well, the Netherlands isn't that big, right? It's 17 million people in total. So yeah, we're one of the top 3 banks in the Netherlands, and we're doing great things in the world as well.
And what are some of the drivers of your digital transformation? What's happening in your industry that's pushing your company to transform?
Yeah, you could say roughly there are 2. So the first is the fact that customers simply expect that they can do everything online. So more and more of the things that we offer need to be done online, from start to finish, everything. All the competitors are doing it too. So basically, there's all kinds of startups coming. So basically, it's about may the best app win, more or less. So we need to be very good at online. And so being digital. And the other one is simply in Europe you have this thing called the Payment Service Directive 2. Probably never heard about it. It's very much a European thing, PSD2. But it's actually a law that says that all the banks need to open up, that you as a customer should be able to get all your data out of the bank for free. And all of the banks are doing that through APIs. So that's also a very big thing for us. And it's on the one hand it's a compliance thing. You just need to do it. And on the other hand, there's also lots of opportunity, of course, to also consume APIs from other banks and maybe offer you an experience where you integrate products from other banks in our own app, and the other banks will do the same thing. So those are roughly the 2 things that make us do even more digital.
And of course, to innovate with software, you need a few things, one of them being certainly some cultural change and different ways of developing software, but you also need that technology foundation.
Yes.
And I understand at Rabobank you initially undertook to build your own modern development platform.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience, and I guess ultimately you decided not to. Maybe walk us through that experience and why you made that decision.
So we built our own platform before, our own online platform, which is based on Linux and WebSphere and more the traditional JEE kind of functionality or technology. That's been running for 10 years now. It's still running. But late 2015, we saw that we needed to change that. It was not going to scale to the future. We were doing DevOps more and more already. And we saw that, well, a consolidated environment doesn't really work. Teams need to be completely in control themselves. So we started to look out for a different kind of architecture, different kind of platform. And the thing that we found then at that time was, of course, so this was late 2015, lots and lots of microservices. Everybody was starting to do that. Kubernetes didn't exist yet, by the way. So it was somewhere 2016. So it was Mesos, Marathon, those kinds of Docker-based kind of solutions. And we investigated those because that seemed to be what the rest of the world was doing as well. So we did that. We actually built our own platform. We worked on that for a while, but we also saw. So on the one hand, it was great. It's nice to do all these kinds of technological things. On the other hand, we saw that this wouldn't scale. So we're a big bank. We have hundreds of teams. So we thought, what would happen if hundreds of teams are working on this platform? It wasn't multi-tenant. It wasn't really secure. It was built out of many open source components that we all would need to maintain ourselves and make sure that they integrate well. And that's not what we are for as a bank, right? So we want to produce business value and not deliver a platform. So that's where we made the switch in thinking that we should look for a product that did it for us. That's when we ran into Cloud Foundry as a standard, basically, which we liked very much. Very much the simplistic model, just CF push, and that's about it, right? So we thought it was great. And then we did a POC with 2 vendors, one of them being Pivotal. And after the POC, we selected in the end PCF.
So we talked a little bit beforehand about that POC. I thought it was an interesting story in the way you approached that. In this case, with Pivotal being one of the 2, but you insisted that you use your own people as part of the POC, which I think you mentioned was maybe a little bit unusual for both the vendors involved, Pivotal and the other vendor. Talk about why it was important to have your people involved, and then maybe just talk about how the POC went.
The basic idea is very simple, right? This is a platform for developers, so developers need to work with it. And of course, any supplier can come in and with their consultants and show us how great their platform is. of course it's going to be great. So, but we wanted to see it for ourselves. So we really got the teams in and got them to learn microservices as they would need to be built, had them learn CF, the CF commands, and then had them build a couple of use cases. And one of the main criteria was, what's the developer experience like? Because if developers are not liking this, yeah, we can get it, but it won't work because the developers will simply not come to us. So yeah, there were lots more criteria, but one of the top things was the developer experience. So that was why we let our own developers do the whole POC.
And when you say it's got to have a great developer experience, what does that mean? What makes for a good developer experience in your opinion?
Basic things like being able to integrate it really well in your build pipeline, so having a clear API that you can do that. Integrate with your IDE really well so that you can debug and develop easily. And also, of course, when it's a runtime platform, hook into it easily. And being really DevOps and multi-tenant in a way that you as a team, you see your own stuff, but nobody else's stuff. And you can break your stuff, but not somebody else's stuff. Those kinds of things. Well, it's of course a whole lot of things. It's also something like developer happiness. How happy are the developers using it? It's also something we try to measure.
Yeah, I've heard that from other customers as well, other large enterprises, that developers want to write code. They want to write software. They don't want to spend their time dealing with a lot of infrastructure headaches, or certainly not in meetings talking about infrastructure. They want to be writing code. So that makes a lot of sense. So you decided to go with Pivotal Cloud Foundry. So walk us through the journey since then. What have you been doing? What are some of the early wins you've had?
Yeah, so putting it live already took a bit of a challenge, because we also put it in the cloud, which was for us, it's also kind of a big thing to put something in the public cloud even, so that took a while. But we're in production since January 1st this year. And since then, if we look at today, it's a linear growth more or less. There are over 100 teams working on the platform today, over 900 application instances running on it, which translates to roughly 100 unique applications in production. So a lot of applications are still in dev test. So there's a nice growth, and it seems to be continuing in that way. And we have a lot of more teams to go. Overall sentiment of the team is that they're really happy about it. They really like it. At first they're often skeptical, because they think, well, it can't be that simple with a CF push, and it should be much harder than that. Especially when you come from Kubernetes world. It's a bit more complex. But once they see it actually works, and they can do all the things that they really would want to do, then they start to get really happy. So that works. On the other hand, it's all about microservices, and microservices build a distributed system, and those are hard, right? So we have good libraries, we have Spring Boot, we have Spring Cloud Services and all that, but still building distributed services it's really difficult. So that is a challenge, to get everybody on board to get them educated well enough for this.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about that education, that training, and enablement piece of it, because presumably there required some level of education among your developers. Yeah. When you're adopting a new style of developing software that works well with PCF, a platform like PCF, presumably they had to do some learning. So how did you go about that training and enablement part?
One thing that already helps is that suddenly we're working with state-of-the-art technology. So when our developers go to a conference and they learn about Spring Boot and all kinds of other libraries and frameworks, it's actually what we can use today, which was not the case before, because it was WebSphere, and you went to a conference, you learned something about Spring Boot, and that was it. You learned something about Go or Node, but you couldn't run it. So now we can actually run that stuff, so that already helps. Then the team that went first, they've been writing a lot on our internal wiki on what they build, how they build it, why they build it like that, the decisions we took, because there's of course lots of choices to be made. And we try to, for example, we also have a microservices guild where we try to bring teams together and just have sessions on all kinds of topics related to microservices. We have events within the bank where we have external speakers, internal speakers talking about building microservices. And of course, we have sometimes we have Pivotal do dojos with several teams to get them up to speed, not only with PCF but also with the way of working with the Pivotal Labs kind of way. Are
you largely looking at Pivotal Cloud Foundry for greenfield net new applications, or are you looking to, because you're an existing bank, you're successful, you've been around for a while, presumably you have a lot of existing applications, are you doing any refactoring? How do you think about those legacy applications and bringing them into the new world? How this started was, again, that we wanted to migrate our current platform to a new world. So on that platform we have about 400 applications. And we made a statement that we will be turning off that platform in 2 years or so. So we simply have the fact that we have 400 applications to migrate, or
turn off if we don't need them anymore. What we actually see, and to be honest, so I said something about 100 unique applications in production, very few of those are being migrated because most of it is new. So what we see our teams pick up PCF for the new features and then maintain it still on the old platform. And then we try to push them into picking up and migrating all the stuff as well. So it's a mix. And even migrating is different per application. It's not always the same. But actually with the platform we're in pretty good shape. The platform that we had as well. We're already used to smaller services, smaller apps that translate pretty well to microservices, often. So that's one part. It's the whole migration of everything we have on the online platform that we still need to do. But we actually also said that PCF was going to be our microservices platform for the whole bank. So in other parts of the bank, people are also looking at migrating WebSphere applications or Spring Boot applications they are running elsewhere on different kinds of stacks onto PCF. So it's a company-wide movement.
So this is a very open-ended question, but looking back over the last couple of years, what are one or two of the biggest lessons learned, or maybe some of the biggest surprises along the way that you could share with the audience, people who might be about to go through their own transformation?
I'm a bit of a cynic mostly in my normal life, so a lot of the things that I expected also turned out, like distributed systems are hard. So, developers love it, that's cool, but building those systems is really hard, and that was confirmed. So that's the thing we learned. What we should have done better and still can do better is really make a product out of PCF internally. So for us it's still PCF, and we have a backlog of course on all the things that we will do. But we still call it PCF, and we don't evangelize it across the company enough, I think. I think that we can do better. Well, overall, yeah, I think it's going well, but and the biggest challenge is actually not the technology, it's getting all the teams on. And that's also the nice challenge.
Right, and I imagine that's going to be a big part of your focus going forward.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic. Vincent, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you too.